Hello folks, welcome back to the most interesting corner of the internet that we call Marvelous Videos. Today we have a treat for fans of horror as we're listing 10 of the best vampire B-movies ever made. Pull out your binge list and get comfortable. But before we begin, make sure you've subscribed to our channel to ensure you're never ever bored. Done? Then let's dive right in. But before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
I don't know. The blood seeping through.
Blackula. Considered one of the first blaxploitation horror films to ever be made, Blackula was a 1972 film directed by William Crane. If you don't know what blaxploitation is, it's basically a movie with mostly or all black actors. Blackula was the first film to win an award for Best Horror Film in the Saturn Awards and was followed by a sequel called Scream, Blackula Scream in 1973. The movie also inspired a whole slew of blaxploitation horror films. The movie stars William Marshall as Mamuwalde, an African prince who approaches Count Dracula to help suppress the slave trade in 1780. But Dracula insults the prince and makes a move at his wife, Luva, which leads to Mamuwalde attacking the count. The scuffle ends with Dracula biting the prince, cursing him with the name Blackula, and locking him up in a coffin below the castle with his wife. Luva dies of suffocation, and Blackula remains dormant until 1972, when two interior decorators buy the coffin. The decorators, Billy Schaefer and Bobby McCoy, bring the coffin to Los Angeles and open it, becoming the first victims of the starved vampire. Blackula begins terrorizing LA till he spots Tina, a woman he believes to be the reincarnation of Luva, as she looks a lot like his dead wife. But the Los Angeles Police Department soon gets on his tail and begins to hunt him down. Tina is killed in the fight against the cops, and seeing no point in living without his wife, Blackula commits suicide by walking into the sun. If you call yourself a blaxploitation enthusiast, you must watch this cool film. Count Jorga, Vampire. Count Jorga Vampire is a 1970 movie that tells the story of a group of youngsters who fall into the deadly trap of a vampire. We first see Count Jorga sizing up the group in Donna's mother's seance. As far as Donna knows, Jorga is just her mother's weird boyfriend who happens to be a hypnotist and mystic. But unknown to her, Jorga was the one who had facilitated Donna's mother's death in order to take her as his bride. Jorga soon begins attacking Erica, Donna's friend, hoping to turn her into another one of his brides. And it's up to Donna, her boyfriend Michael, and their friends Paul and Jim Hayes, a doctor, to free Eric and Donna's mom from Jorga's clutches. Will they be successful, or will they end up losing their mortal lives to the nefarious Count Jorga? Watch the movie to find out. Fun fact, this movie is also known as The Loves of Count Jorga Vampire and was originally written to be a softcore porn film with the vampire's name as Jorga. After actor and producer Michael McCready showed interest in the script, it was decided that the movie would be better as a horror flick. Directed and written by Bob Kaljan, the movie has quite an interesting and believable script that will have you hooked till the very end. Dance of the Damned. Jody Hertz, a dancer in Paradise Cafe, a strip club, has had enough of this life. She had recently separated from her husband and had lost custody of her only son. Her ex-husband had kept the boy completely away from her, refusing to let her see him even on his birthday. As she pleads on the phone to her ex-husband, begging him to let her say happy birthday to her son, a vampire visiting the club overhears her. He also overhears that in this desperation, Jody is contemplating suicide. After her shift ends, the vampire approaches her and offers to give her $1,000 in exchange for her time and company that night. He also promises to kill her by 6 a.m. if she tells him everything she likes about being immortal. Jody spends the entire night describing the feeling of friends, the sunlight, and human characteristics. The vampire helps her see her son, and she gets infatuated with him. By the end of the night, the vampire realizes that Jody still wants to live, and he commits suicide by walking into the sunlight. Directed by Kat Shea, the 1989 movie Dance of the Damned is not your regular vampire movie full of scary plot twists. It's a philosophical exploration of what it means to be human with a surprisingly deep message. Blood for Dracula. Count Dracula needs virgin blood to survive, but since his family's reputation of being shady and dangerous has gotten out in Transylvania, people, especially women, fear coming near his castle. Due to the lack of virgin blood, Dracula's family members perish, and he decides to head to Italy to hunt with his servant Anton. In Italy, Dracula meets Il Marchese di Fiore, who has 4 daughters. Though he claims they are all virgins, only the oldest, Esmeralda, who is considered past her prime, and the youngest, Perla, who is just 14, are virgins, as the other 2, Sufuria and Rubinia, often enjoy sexual exploits with their handyman Mario. The Marchese, high in debt, offers Dracula the hand of either Sufuria or Rubinia in marriage, knowing that Dracula's wealth will help him. But when Dracula drinks their blood, he becomes weaker. Nevertheless, he makes them his slaves and plans to attack Perla and Esmeralda after the Marchese leaves to settle his debts. Mario finds out and alerts the Marchese's wife, the Marchesa, about Dracula, and rapes Perla under the guise that he is rescuing her from Dracula's clutches. Marchesa confronts Anton, who stabs her, but she only succumbs to her wound after shooting Anton fatally. Meanwhile, Dracula drinks Esmeralda's blood and grows powerful, but Mario ambushes him and kills both Esmeralda and Dracula, becoming the de facto owner of the estate. This is the crux of the 1974 comedy horror film Blood for Dracula. Real gowns from 1920 were used in the movie, and the dresses were so fragile that great care was taken to make sure no dirt or fake blood got on them, as they could not be replaced. If for nothing else, you'll have to watch the movie for the period-perfect costumes. Bloodsuckers. Described as Star Trek meets Buffy in the world of Mad Max, Bloodsuckers is a 2005 TV film set in the distant year of 2210, where humans have met several vampiric alien races like Voorhees and Leatherfaces. So the humans have come up with vampire sanitation crews, or VSAN crews, to kill all the vampires and make planets habitable for humans. We follow a VSAN spaceship called the Hieronymus, led by Captain Nicholas Churchill, with First Officer Damian Underwood and crew Rosa Wang, Roman Kuczynski, and Quitana. Quitana is the only vampire on board, which leads Rosa and Roman to constantly question her loyalty. Hieronymus must quickly forget their differences and work together, as not only does their captain get kidnapped by the Leatherfaces, they are also facing an attack by the Voorhees, led by Muko, a vampire hell-bent on slaughtering all humans. Who will succeed? Only watching the movie will answer that question. Written and directed by Matthew Hastings, Bloodsuckers is chock full of gore and action. Though you might find the special effects a bit meh, the story and acting make up for this con. The Lair of the White Worm. One of Bram Stoker's lesser-known horror novels is The Lair of the White Worm. In 1988, Ken Russell loosely adapted this novel into a supernatural comedy horror starring familiar faces like Hugh Grant, Peter Capaldi, and Catherine Oxenberg. Scottish archaeologist Angus Flint discovers a skull in a bed and breakfast run by Mary and Eve Trent, which leads him to a local legend of a gigantic worm. Flint realizes that there is more to the legend, as mysterious disappearances all seem to surround the Temple House, the very place which legend says houses the hole where the gigantic worm lived. The Temple House was occupied by Lady Sylvia Marsh, a priestess who dressed in white all the time and worshipped Dianan, the ancient snake god. Lady Sylvia begins to seduce James Dampton, lord of the manor, whose ancestor had slain the legendary worm. Unknown to James, Sylvia offers human sacrifices to her god and, like a vampire, bites other people in town who turn serpentine and obey her every wish. But in the nick of time, James finds out, and with Angus, kills Lady Sylvia and destroys the hole where the gigantic snake lived. The film ends with Angus discovering a snake bite on his leg, letting us, the audience, decide whether he too is under the venom's influence or not. You'll like this movie if you like bizarre and erotic flicks with a tinge of tongue-in-cheek comedy. The Final Girls. On the anniversary of her mother's death, Max Cartwright is persuaded to go see her mother's movie Camp Bloodbath with her friends Chris, Gertie, and Gertie's stepbrother Duncan. In the theater, they find Vicky, Chris's possessive ex-girlfriend. While watching the movie, the theater is accidentally set ablaze, and Max cuts a hole in the screen to escape, unknowingly leading Gertie, Duncan, Chris, and Vicky into the movie. They head to Camp Bluefinch and befriend the counselors, Kurt, Tina, Blake, and Nancy. They quickly realize that they are not immune to being hunted down by the antagonist of the movie, Billy Murphy, and have to survive his continuous attacks. They try to deter the characters from having sex, as that is what causes Billy to attack, but are not successful, as each of them gets killed one by one. Max tells Nancy, the character played by Max's mother Amanda, that she is her daughter in real life, which inspires her to sacrifice herself to make Max the final girl. A bloody and wounded Chris approaches her with a kiss, and they both pass out. They wake up in the hospital, where they are reunited with their friends, but the opening music of Camp Bloodbath 2, Cruel Summer, begins to play, and as Billy breaks in through the window, they realize they have not yet left the movie. This is the unique take director Todd Strauss-Schulson puts forth in his 2015 movie, The Final Girls. An interesting fact about this movie is that the writer, Joshua John Miller, wrote it as a way to cope with the loss of his father, Jason Miller, who famously starred in the 1973 horror classic, The Exorcist. If you've ever claimed to be a fan of meta horror, this is the film for you. Bit. Laurel, an 18-year-old trans woman, moves to Los Angeles to get a fresh start on life and reconcile with her brother Mark. On a night out with Mark, she visits a club run by Duke, a powerful vampire who runs an all-woman coven, with Laurel and asks her to join their coven, which empowers women and kills only those who deserve it. Though Laurel is confused at first, she kills a vampire hunter who attacked Duke and her coven and starts learning the ways of being a vampire. She finds out that years ago, Duke had been converted by a powerful vampire called Vlad, who had made her his sex slave. Duke had escaped after Vlad suffered a powerful blow from his foes, but thanks to his immortal heart, had survived. But Duke imprisoned him and fed from his heart to empower herself. She also realizes that one of Vlad's loyal brides had been imprisoned beneath the club. Duke tells Laurel that she had realized that men can't be trusted with power and had installed a strict rule that no man could ever be converted by the members. Unfortunately, during an argument with Mark, Laurel ends up converting him and Duke demands his death. To distract her, she frees Vlad's bride, who in turn frees Vlad. Laurel stands up to Vlad and after imprisoning him, throws Duke in prison, telling her that she had become a power-hungry vampire just like Vlad and shared his heart with all the vampires, making sure that there was no one overly powerful vampire in the coven. This is the plot of the 2019 movie Bit, which is a genuinely enjoyable flick. The story is simple, so you don't get lost in the sauce, and the acting is passable. A great fit for your next weekend watch. To Sleep with a Vampire. If you have already watched Dance of the Damned, which we previously mentioned in this list, you'll need to check out the 1993 remake To Sleep with a Vampire. Directed by Adam Friedman, To Sleep with a Vampire takes the same story in a new direction. The plot points are essentially the same: a stripper desperate and sad about not seeing her son, a vampire looking for easy prey, and the curiosity of the vampire towards mortal life. But this movie adds a lot of romance into the script. In the beginning of the movie, both the stripper and the vampire want to kill each other, but as the night progresses, they realize that they are both creatures of the night and have much in common than they had initially noticed. They begin to fall in love, and the movie takes a tragic turn when the vampire decides to end his life. If you ask us, we like the original film better, as the dialogues are much stronger and the premise appears new and fresh, but the remake is not without its highlights. Charlie Spradling's acting is stellar, and the movie is well made throughout. Watch the movie and let us know which one you like better, the original or the remake. We'll be looking at the comment section for your answers. Billy the Kid vs. Dracula. Billy the Kid vs. Dracula is a wonderful blend of Western and horror genres, directed by William Bodine, based on the story and screenplay by Carl K. Hittleman. The movie revolves around Dracula trying to convert Betty Bentley, Billy the Kid's fiancée, into his vampire bride. He introduces himself to Betty as her dead uncle, Mr. Underhill, planning to get close to her. A German couple working under Betty immediately clocks Dracula and tells Betty that her uncle is a vampire, but she doesn't believe them. However, Billy, who had his suspicions regarding her uncle, immediately accepts the couple's warnings. But before Billy can do anything about it, Betty is kidnapped by the Count and taken to an abandoned silver mine. Billy follows, armed with a silver scalpel, after finding out that Dracula is immune to normal weapons and ammunition. A fight ensues. Billy emerges victorious, and he leads Betty away to live happily ever after. Though John Carradine, who portrayed Dracula, considered this film to be the worst one he had ever been in, it is a must-watch for horror nerds. The movie's kind of goofy and ends up unintentionally hilarious at times, and we definitely recommend Billy the Kid vs. Dracula if you're looking for mindless entertainment. Marvelous verdict. We hope this list has filled your movie appetite. Let us know if we forgot about any of your favorites, and if you like this list, make sure you share it with your friends and spread the joy, and leave a thumbs up to encourage our content. We'll be back with yet another awesome video, and until then, take care and have a great day. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.